Welcome to Washington Hospital Today, dedicated to informing residents about healthcare topics and issues. Through programs featuring community forums and free health and wellness classes, our goal is to empower community members with the information needed to make informed health decisions. Washington Hospital has been providing health care to the residents of the Washington Township Healthcare District for the past 60 years.
Hello and welcome. Today's fun, fresh summer cooking demonstration is presented by Anna Mazzei. Anna is a registered dietitian and a certified diabetes educator for Washington Hospital. Anna started Washington Hospital in 1986 as an inpatient dietitian. Currently, she is the outpatient dietitian providing education on diabetes and weight management. Without further ado, please welcome Anna Mazzei.
Thanks for joining us today for fun, fresh summer cooking. This is the summer we're going to celebrate and enjoy more than any others in the past as we recover from COVID. And one great way to celebrate the summer is with tasty, bountiful produce that is locally grown. Just want to point out the slide that's on the screen. It gives you lots of resources to learn about fresh produce and how to use fresh produce. The first one is QUESA, which is a nonprofit organization in Northern California that promotes produce grown in this area. Also helps communities get farmers markets into their area and provides educational information and recipes. Then the Food Network gives you a lot of videos on how to do something like, in this case today, we're going to talk about grilling. Plenty of recipes for fresh produce in the summertime. Produce for Better Health goes even deeper into each type of fruit or vegetable, telling its nutritional content, what health claims are around it, and how to pick the produce. So it's extensive at Produce for Better Health. The USDA also goes into information for different fruits and vegetables and also covers a lot of safety information about like what temperature you should cook the food to and so forth. So let's start by looking at the bountiful fruits and vegetables we have in the area. So we've got peaches in the season, bell peppers, zucchini, cucumbers in season, of course, berries. And some things you want to keep in mind about produce is that it is free of cholesterol, free of fat, free of saturated fat, so that can only help your cholesterol levels. It's also, because of that, it's also low calorie, and that's going to help with the weight management. The other thing that's going to help with the weight management is that it's high in fiber, high in water content, and that helps with regularity and keeps you full longer. So that's going to also help with weight management. And we know that keeping your weight in a healthy body weight range is going to help reduce the risk of diabetes, heart disease, lower blood pressure, reduce risk of certain types of cancers, aid in sleep apnea, and also relieve joint pain as you lose weight. Okay? So I wanted to just show you some ways to entertain people when they first come over for a grilling party, is having fruits and vegetables in little cups like this, and having some kind of dip down here. So it could be ranch, it could be some kind of hummus. Again, if you go to some of these websites, they have recipes for roasted eggplant and bell pepper. That gives you a good kind of dip. You could also do guacamole. You can kind of lighten up some guacamole too with some fat-free plain yogurt. And then you could put vegetables or fruit onto kebabs. And this could also be, brushed with some pesto or olive oil and balsamic vinegar. You could even put pieces of bread and cheese on it too. And over here you have some like a yogurt dip for the fruit kebabs. All right. So let's take a look at something else about fruits and vegetables. In addition to being low calorie, as I mentioned, they're loaded with phytochemicals. These are plant chemicals that you can identify by the color of the fruit and vegetable, the taste, the odor. These plant chemicals are phytochemicals, really fight diseases. And it's because they have, their biggest property is acting as antioxidants and anti-inflammatory agents, and in that way reducing risk of damage to DNA and cells, because that starts disease processes. So working with patients daily, I see that they don't really meet their fruit and vegetable recommended amounts. So this is the season to really enjoy them, but people give a lot of excuses about why they really can't work fruits and vegetables into their meal planning, even though they like them. And one of the things is that you have to wash them and cut them up. Well, the grocery industry has come along with providing things already washed, cut up, and ready to microwave. So here's a bag of broccoli. All you have to do is put this in the microwave and then season it after. Here we have salads, salad kits, a lot of different varieties of salad kits out there. This is a kebab ready to go with vegetables on here and fruit cut up already. So if you don't want to bother cutting up a whole cantaloupe for yourself when you feel like you might waste it, it's important to get these things already cut up for you so there's less waste. So there's few excuses now not to fit fruits and vegetables into your diet with all these conveniences that we have. So there's plenty of ways to eat fruits and vegetables. Obviously, you can eat them raw, and they're in season now, and they're going to be at their peak flavor. Okay, so you can eat them raw in salads, steam them, roast them. That's become very popular. And you can also grill them, all right? So let's take a look at some grilled vegetables. There you go. Also want to talk to you a little bit about grilling, is that it conjures up great images of the summer, right? Entertaining, being outside, just tons of fun doing that kind of cooking outside. It's low fat. It's flavorful because of the browning that goes on. It's easy cleanup, keeps smells out of the house, like when you're cooking fish that we're doing today. Okay, let me just turn these a little bit. We're going to talk about those in a minute. All right, so, but at the same time, grilling can be a low-fat method of cooking and brings a lot of flavor. We want to be careful about charring the food and getting it smoked, because when fat starts to drip onto the source of heat, all that smoke comes up, and really you're creating cancer-causing agents, carcinogens. So already with vegetables and fruit, they're low fat, so they're not going to be dripping down onto the heat source and doing that. So when you are grilling fruits and vegetables, what you want to keep in mind, so this is the charred meat that I'm talking about, when it gets dark like this and you get some of that blacking on the meat. Same with when people roast marshmallows for s'mores. Some people get it really black. That is all, might taste good to them, but you're creating, like I said, those cancer-causing agents. So something you want to keep in mind about grilling vegetables is that you want to get a maximum surface area, and you want to cut it into a size that's not going to fall through the grates, okay? So in the case of, for example, the eggplant, you just want to cut it into now this is a big eggplant, so it's pretty easy to cut it into coins like that, right? That's not going to fall through the grate. And then you could just put it on a sheet, brush it with some olive oil, salt and pepper, maybe some vinegar, garlic powder or fresh garlic. Same with something like bell peppers, creating that surface area. Let's divide this up into thirds. That's what the chef at the hospital tells me to do. And then flatten it out. And that's kind of what they've done here. What he's done here. He's flattened out the bell pepper, and he shows you again the kebabs and the zucchini and giving you those nice grill marks. Okay, and you're caramelizing all the carbohydrates or sugars in the vegetables, which aren't a lot in there anyway. Okay, so when you are grilling vegetables, like I said, you're going to bring out a lot of flavor. It creates a lot of brightness to the foods. When it comes to cooking or grilling protein sources, you want to start out lean, again, because you don't want all that fat falling on the heat source. So let's take a look at, today we're cooking salmon kebabs, but when you look at lean cuts of beef, they're going to be sirloin, tenderloin, flank steak, London broil, that type of thing. You can see that there's not a lot of marbling in this meat. And of course, chicken, this is a big chicken breast. It is no skin on it, boneless. So again, that's going to be very lean, and same with this pork tenderloin. So when you start out with a lean cut of meat, you don't want it to get tough. So a good idea is to marinate it. But when it comes to marinades, you want to make sure that you keep the right ratio. And this slide explains that to you. Because if you have too much of the acid, it can actually make the protein source mushy. So take a look at the ideas here. Acids could be anything from citrus, lemon, lime, also alcohol like beer or wine, buttermilk. That's going to start to help break down some of that tissue, but again, not too much. And that's why you've got to have a larger amount of fat in this formula. And then you can add spices and this type of thing. And then those are the marinating times. You surely cannot marinate seafood the same amount of time that you would do beef. It's just too tender. Okay? So when you're using lean cuts of protein sources, like we said, the pork tenderloin or skinless chicken breast, what you want to do is follow instructions on how the length of the marinade and keep to the formula ideas that we have here on the slide. Okay, and then as I mentioned, you want to maybe get those nice grill marks on the hot part of your grill and then move it to the other side where it's less heat and it's going to cook more slowly. Okay, and maybe even flip it frequently, so again, to reduce those carcinogens from building up. The other thing I wanted to mention, of course, about grilling vegetables, remember, besides slicing them in an area that they don't fall through the grate, you might want to also, some vegetables you're going to have to put on a skewer, okay, like a mushroom or something like that, or a potato. Okay, so typically when you do grill, you want to bring the meat to room temperature and put some oil on the grate so it doesn't stick. And then in this case, today we have, as I mentioned, the kebabs. These are Mediterranean salmon kebabs. All right. So let's just talk a little bit about salmon for a moment. The season is coming up for salmon, and that's why I thought it might be a good idea. And again, it's fish, and then you'll have less smells in the house. All right. So salmon is a nice meaty fish, so you can get some good, nice chunks to put on a skewer. Okay, so here we have, I'm going to first start out with, let me talk about our marinade first. All right, so in this marinade, I have actually maybe 1 or 2 tablespoons of lemon juice and then a 1/3 cup oil, again, trying to follow that formula. And then we have about 3 cloves of garlic, some fresh thyme, oregano, a little heat with some cayenne pepper. All right. And again, usually you want the fish to marinate maybe, like I said, 15, 20 minutes. That's what the recipe here calls for. All right. So we're just going to, let me get a spoon over here. Okay, so while I'm just tossing this a little bit, remember salmon has those omega-3 fatty acids, and those are cardioprotective. Not necessarily because of lowering cholesterol. They have other benefits to the omega-3 fatty acids when it comes to being heart healthy. For example, they reduce the risk of blood clots and irregular heartbeats from occurring. Also helps to lower triglycerides, which is another type of blood fat, and lower blood pressure. The Heart Association recommends having at least 2 fish meals a week because they're so low in saturated fat, which is the fat you want to avoid. Salmon is a little fattier, but of course it has those beneficial fats in it, all right? So typically, like I said, you want to marinate this for probably 15, 20 minutes. Let me put this over here. And you want to soak the bamboo sticks for about 20 to 30 minutes so they don't burn on the grill. And I'm going to start out with a zucchini so that my salmon is kind of soft. I don't want it to fall down, okay? Then I'm going to let the onion come on top and give some more flavor to that salmon. And then I'm going to repeat that, okay? So you get some nice chunks of salmon in there. I've seen, when I've looked at different grilling ideas, when it comes to chicken, for example, it can be irregular shaped. And I've seen people pounding it so that it becomes all the same shape, so it's going to cook equally and evenly. Also, brining the chicken can also tenderize it and give it flavor, and then you would not add salt to it during seasoning, all right? Okay, so here's my salmon. Losing track. Okay, my onion. You can get quite a bit on this long stick. You can make it shorter. Okay. So there's one whole kebab. All right. So you're going to cook this for maybe somewhere around, I would say, 7 minutes. And then you want to turn it over halfway through. So you want to grill the salmon kebabs about 6 to 8 minutes. But I think you sort of have to look at how it's cooking. You want the fish to be opaque. You could also use a thermometer, getting to about 140 degrees for the fish. Some people like it not done as well. And again, that's somebody's preference. So let's take a look at our salmon that has been cooking, our kebabs, and let's lay them out. All right. So these look pretty well done. They've got that nice grill marks on it. All right. So zucchini is so plentiful in the summer. It seems like when I grow it in my yard that I'm waiting and waiting and waiting to see something, and then I'll see a flower, and then before you know it, it's like in a few days, they're just out of control all over the place, okay? So that makes a nice looking kebab right there. But celebrating zucchini and using it, you can use it in a number of different ways. So zucchini can be used in salads. It can be steamed. It can be stir-fried, sautéed, roasted in the oven, and of course grilled. But I found a new way to use excessive zucchini is to use something called a spiralizer. And there's different tools that are called spiralizers. But when you're trying to cut back, let's say, on pasta to control your blood sugar or calories, you could mix it with noodles and zoodles, all right? So I have this option here to spiralize thin or thick. So I'm gonna go with the thick part because I like it kind of al dente, all right? And then you should take this, just sprinkle a little salt and let it sit there in a colander for about 15, 20 minutes to get some of the water out. Okay. You could do this with carrots too. There's a lot of options for this. And then as it gets down to the near end there without hurting yourself, you take off this piece at the back and you can push it through. It's a sharp inside there, so you got to be careful. But this will help to use up all the zucchini. You can stuff zucchini too. So there's a lot of options, and it's not a strong tasting vegetable. It's actually surprisingly high in vitamin C because we always think about citrus being the highest in vitamin C, but it's a really good source of vitamin C. So here we have zoodles, and like I said, you'd want to soak those, not soak those, but let them get a little salty and some of that water comes out. And here I have an electric skillet, and I'm just going to heat that up. And you could add anything to this. Maybe you could fry some olive oil in here. Could maybe go sort of an Asian flair, sauteing it with soy sauce and some sesame seed oil. Putting some ginger in there, okay? So let's put this over here. And then, in this case, I'm going to add some pesto. And as I mentioned, maybe you're trying to cut down on pasta, but not all the way, so you could mix maybe some whole wheat noodles into this. Nowadays, you can find noodles made from even beans. There's some noodles at your regular grocery store that are made with garbanzo beans. You can mix that in here too. And that would be super nutritious. So we're just going to make sure that we wilt this a little bit. So you want to wilt it down. And like I said, if you had this with a little salt in it, some of the water would be out of it too. But I thought it was nice, and I mixed it with whole wheat noodles, and it was al dente. So, as I mentioned, not a strong tasting vegetable, so it can be used in a number of different ways. I mean, we used, zucchini to make zucchini bread, and you can make it for sweet bread or a savory bread too. It's getting very versatile, okay? So then we just put some pesto on here, and you can make pesto with basil from home if you can do that. There are only a few ingredients: pine nuts, olive oil, garlic, Parmesan cheese. And that's pretty fast, okay? And that basil has a really great smell. You can make it at home if you want, and with maybe if you're growing basil, and then freeze it. All right? You could put a red sauce on here too. Some ground meat. All right? So let's turn this down. So I was talking about having zucchini in abundance, also tomatoes. Of course, with all this produce, you can do canning. I was told that that was really popular during shelter in place, that people were canning fruits and vegetables and going kind of old school. So that's a great idea. And if you don't have time, though, there's other things you can do with fruits and vegetables to prevent waste. If you've got a lot of tomatoes, you can cut these up and just put them in the oven with salt and pepper, a little oil, some balsamic vinegar, and they're going to sweeten right up. And you can spread these onto sandwiches because it gets really kind of almost like a tomato jam, okay? But it really is an intense flavor. So it's like sun-dried tomatoes, all right? Also, when fruit's getting old, you can cook it down and put it over some ice cream or make even popsicles out of fruit too, so that you can prevent wasting the fresh produce. Okay, so what we have here is our dressing. Let's start out talking about our dressing for this dish. We've got balsamic vinegar. And what I did was I cooked down the balsamic vinegar. It's made from grapes and it sort of has a sweet edge to it. And then we added honey to it. So it becomes very thick, like a syrup. All right, and we're going to put that on at the end. Also, just a tip, if you're using honey and you want to get it all off the spoon, if you spray it with a nonstick spray, just a little bit in there, and then when the honey goes on there, it comes right out. Okay, it doesn't stick because of the nonstick spray. So that's just a tip on when you're using something like that. All right? Okay. So let's get back to this arugula salad. Again, the arugula is a very strong, pungent green. Okay, and it's, for some people, they might want to mix this with a spring mix or some other type of green like spinach, because it might be too peppery for them, and they might want to have a little variety on the plate. Okay? So that's all washed. Here's the convenience of having these things done for you. All right, and we have grilled peaches. So peaches are high in great flavor. Okay? They have some vitamin C, but they are just loaded with flavor. So I grilled the peaches, and when you grill something like peaches, or another fruit, what happens is you want to have it sort of firm, because if it's too ripe, it's going to get too mushy and it won't even hold up on the grill. So these were sort of firm when I had them. And what you're going to do now is just line up these here. Let me go out like this. Okay. Half of the peaches. It asks for 10 cups of arugula. So that's why I was saying you might want to mix it up a little bit with something else. Okay, so actually arugula is in the cruciferous family, which is with broccoli and cauliflower and Brussels sprouts. And they have potent antioxidants in there also, okay? And then we have goat cheese, which some people might be able to digest more easily than other kinds of cheeses. Has a lot of probiotics in it. Okay, and usually you find goat cheese like a log, but I found it crumbled, which is a lot easier to handle. Okay, so it helps with building up your immune system and helping with increasing digestibility. It's kind of a low lactose, so for people who are lactose intolerant, it might work out better for them than a cow's milk cheese. And then I'm going to put some of these walnuts on here to give it some extra textural interest, all right? And then you're just going to put a little bit of olive oil and toss it with a little salt and pepper. Put that over here. Mix it up a little bit like this. A little salt and pepper. Okay. And then you're going to get that nice, sweet, syrupy honey and balsamic mixture like that. So you get that black syrup coming on here. That's going to really pair well with that peppery arugula, a little bit of the creaminess of the cheese and the sweetness of the peach. And then you've got some of that textural component of adding the walnuts. All right. So I think that's a great way to go this summer, to use the peaches in a different way. I used to never like fruit with my vegetables, but I've come along with enjoying that more now, accepting it tastes good together. So fresh fruit in season is itself the best nutritious dessert. But if you wanted to elevate it at a party this summer, you could provide a Pavlova, which was named after a ballerina when she visited the New Zealand and Australia. So the chef down there made a dessert that emphasizes berries, but also it sits on a fluffy meringue, okay? So it's called the Pavlova. So first you want to get the egg whites here and beat them up into a stiff peak. So a stiff peak holds it doesn't flop down, okay? It just stays nice and formed, the peaks. All right, so then you want to add some sugar very slowly. Gradually add the sugar to this. Now, if you had a regular beater at home that sits in like a large KitchenAid, obviously it's going to go faster. All right, so let's just put a little bit in at a time. And what you want after this is it's going to get glossy. Still holding its peaks, okay. So it's got about a cup of sugar in it, okay? And you could try to cut back on that, but again, it's okay, so it looks kind of shiny, and then it's going to go to stiff peaks again once we add a little bit of sugar and cornstarch mixed together. The cornstarch helps to absorb any moisture when you make the meringue, so it comes out like a marshmallow in the middle, but not wet, okay? And we're going to also add some lemon zest, some vanilla, all right? Also, to get a nice zest from the lemon or lime that you could use a microplaner There's other types of devices out there. The microplaner is what I use. So it's easy to get that zest off. And you don't want to get too far down because then it gets too bitter, okay? So that makes you can get a nice zest from the microplaner, just to show you, okay? Okay, so it's glossy and the volume's built up now. And so to prepare the Pavlova, which I have them right here, they came out of the oven. Let me just show you what I did. You want to make a circle. Now you could make one big Pavlova, just make a circle so you can pipe it in. But I made small ones here, okay? And then I turned the parchment paper over, not wax paper, it's parchment paper. And then you can scoop in the circles. And you're going to sort of create a bowl so that they can hold the berries and some whipping cream, all right? And so the other thing you could do is pipe it. You could pipe it and make some kind of decoration, but you want to create sort of a scoop in the middle, like here, so that it can hold the berries. Now, what happens is that it takes a long time for these to bake. You start out with, you put the oven at 250 and you cook it for probably an hour, hour and 15, and then you turn off the oven and let them dry out till they are, all the moisture's kind of out of them. And so that when you touch it, it can break a little bit, but you'll see the marshmallow in the middle, okay? Now, when I first made this, I was right at 1 hour and they were white. And I let it go a little longer so they look more vanilla, okay? Area there to put our whipped cream. To cut down on the amount of whipped cream, what we're gonna do is we're gonna add some non-fat plain yogurt, all right? So we've got a fat-free dessert that's actually high in protein because egg whites are high in protein. And we're gonna mix this vanilla yogurt with the whipping cream to get a little fat in there from the whipping cream. That is true, but we're cutting it a little bit with the yogurt. All right, so then we're going to scoop it in here like that. And then we've got a burst of berries that are in season that are loaded with antioxidants called flavonoids. They're known to be potent antioxidants, right? The blueberries are known for that. Let me get some. Okay, so now this is kind of a nice party dish here, dessert for people. Okay, so it's going to be crunchy on the outside and marshmallowy in the middle. And it looks really great and fresh, right? And these can last a few days too. Of course, in a dry area, because if it's humid they're going to get soft, all right? So thanks for joining me today to learn about produce and different ways to enjoy the summer with using these foods. And I hope you have one of the best summers ever. And embrace produce that's in season and grown locally in our area.